Let people move you, but understand why they're moving you from one place to the next.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner Sharon Sutton.
My guest this week on Island Influencers is Nick Preskey of Locate of the Isle of Man Government. Nick has over 30 years experience in the Isle of Man financial services industry with over 16 years at senior management level. In his last 6 years prior to taking up his appointment within the Isle of Man Government, Nick served as the Chief Executive Officer of a regulated trust service provider. During his time on the island, his roles have included banking, international treasury management, box management and fiduciary services. Nick's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. And currently within the Locate team, his responsibilities extend to the high net worth strategy, which is looking to attract economic contributors to the island and assisting companies to bring skilled staff here. This may involve an immigration process if they're moving from outside the UK and Ireland. Nick shares some great, to coin his phrase, Nickisms, and some brilliant stories with me, including how drinking water out of the Sulby River ended his cycling gap career, and I'm not surprised. So here's this week's conversation with Nick Preskey in episode 49 of Island Influencers. Lovely to have you, Nick. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. Just let us know a bit about you. What's your story? How have you ended up to being where you are at Locate IM?
Oh, it's been quite an interesting journey for me, really. And in particular, moving to the Isle of Man, I was a young man in Sheffield, banker by profession, and, things weren't going particularly, I'd say they weren't going particularly well. They could have been going a lot better for me. So being slightly, I'll have to watch words, what words I can really use. Can you use a word like ballsy?
Why not?
So, young lad, bit ballsy, big into my football at the time. I was playing in a decent standard of football. So, you've got that real sort of grit about you. And particularly if you're playing in sort of leagues in Sheffield and, you've come up through them, it teaches you a lot about people and, you've got to have a bit of grit. When you're sitting up playing against, Frickley Colliery, that are minors, you've got to have a bit of guile about you. So,
yeah, sure. Especially if you work for a bank.
Well, it was a real contrast, really. Somebody like me working in a bank. But having said that, there was a few of us in there, and you'll see as my story unfolds, I'll tell you a little bit of how I got here.
Yeah.
A guy that I played football with, we were both in the bank together, both decent footballers. He was a better footballer than me, shall we say. But he obviously worked out in banking how to get on better than I did. I was doing exactly the same things. Doing my banking exams and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Passing them slowly but surely. And all of a sudden, this guy, I was my buddy, he seemed to be on a slightly different trajectory than me. So I thought, right, Nick, you need to go and have a chat with somebody about this. So I ended up going to see the area manager. This is old school banking, by the way. Mm-hmm. So I went to see the area manager. And
which bank was it? Can you say? Which site?
Yeah, it was RBS. And prior to that, right. I originally joined, it was Williams and Glyn's, which was
I remember.
A good old traditional sort of northwest or north of England, type of bank. Mm-hmm. I had the choice actually to go to NatWest, but I decided to go for, a smaller, more niche player. Yeah, I went for the Williams and Glyn's. It was fantastic. So anyway, to come back, I saw this guy was getting on, so I went to the area manager and he said, what I'll do, Nick, I'll organise a career chat for you. So you have to go to Manchester. So got on the train, a couple of days later, had an interview. And, they wanted to sounding me out, see what my ambitions were. And got back to the office 2 days later, got a phone call. Nick, got a job for you. I said, where's that then? They said, the Isle of Man. So I thought, they have those motorbike races there, don't they? Oh, that must be great.
Yeah.
Then the next thing I thought is, well, where is it? And this is pre-mobile phone. So it wasn't, you could pull something out of your pocket and go and have a look at it. So Nisa went home, just double checking the atlas. Thought, that's it. Yeah. Sort of west of Liverpool, got a feel for it. And this probably sums me up in a little way. I took the job blind. I wasn't given the opportunity of coming and having a look round.
Gosh.
I was sold on the job. The job itself was to do advances, right? And looking back, I was a little bit hoodwinked, to be honest. But in any way, advances, when you're in the bank, for me, everything was about advances. And if you don't know what advances is, it's about lending money, right? Because that, for me, is where I saw banking at. So brilliant. Got a job in advances, rocked up in the Isle of Man, flew in there, and got in the office, sat down.
What year was this, approximately?
Late 80s. Yeah, early in the, yeah.
Okay.
Late, yeah.
Yeah, just when the offshore was starting to really ramp up.
Absolutely. This is when, the international finance centres, started to really get some momentum.
Yeah.
I think I was something like number 20 on the payroll of RBS, and so we were only sort of quite a small, but we had ambition. Yeah. I think the guy at the time, Tony Barber, had, great plans, and a great leader. And, he took people on a journey with him. Anyway, so I got into my office and I thought, great, I'm going to be lending some money. I'd done the banking exams. I got a bit of an idea about it. Then the first thing that happened, this big pile of files just arrived on my desk. So, right, Nick, welcome to advances. The first thing you need to do when it comes to advances is learn what happens when it goes wrong. So I thought, oh, great. So then, this is brilliant, though. This is old school banking of how it used to be. And, you start from the bottom and you work work your way up. And that was in everything, and there's like steps in banking. You go from, you're like in the machine room, then you're on the counter, then you get into advance, all this sort of stuff. So I'm starting at the bottom again, on the advances. And, you just pick the files out, start with the original proposal, and you look at it, and then you look where you are now. Valuable, really valuable. And then I was also given the job of trying to get the money back. Be it knocking
collecting
on doors. You've got it. And it was, I think it's really important that you learn those, you take those steps and you learn as you go along. So, yeah, and then I sort of progressed with that as well, got to the point you got your own discretionary lending limits, and that sort of stuff, really used to excite me.
Yeah.
You can lend up something like £500,000 for mortgages and stuff like that, all good stuff, things that you go to college and you work hard for, sure. and that was your goal. And then what happened? Banking started to change, didn't it?
Well, it did, yeah. I mean, I was in Barclays at the time. So just down the road from you, actually, down in Victoria House. No, you were in Victory House, were you? You were just up there? We were down in, is it Victoria House? Down in Victoria Street?
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it did start to change, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened in your world?
Well, it was the time when Fred the Shred was on the scene. And, he basically ripped the old traditional banking book up, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You do need to evolve. And I think it's really important that businesses can evolve.
So Willie Glenn's got taken over quite a lot before that, though, didn't they?
Yes, they. Yeah, I think they got taken over in the about 85, I think it is.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and so you came over with RBS.
Yes. Yeah. And every now and again, I go through my drawer and I find that pen that was to commemorate changing Williams and Glenn's to RBS. Aww, still got it. Yeah. But, it did start to change and, things became quite centralised and basically you had a lot of your discretionary powers taken away, and that started to grate a little bit on me. I hadn't gone and invested a lot of my time at going to night school and, I say university, it's the equivalent of a banking degree, but you did it, day release and in the evening. And, I thought, I haven't spent all my time doing that just to fill out forms. But, I stuck with it for a bit. And then, needless to say, I got headhunted to go and work for Clerical Medical.
Okay.
So I was brought in there with my banking knowledge to run the treasury function. So basically that was laying off money into the money markets in London, currency dealing, and also running the box, which I don't know if we should go into an explanation of what the box is, but it's the underlying investments that all these policies tend to, fall into. I mean, you can get those, you probably know far more than I do, Sharon, on all of this. But underlying, you might have got 20 asset pools, of which above you can have something like 30 or 40 different policies that you can form, with portfolios with different blends. Mm-hmm. Basically, I was just managing the underlyings of all of those as money was coming in and out. You decided if you cover your position or you leave it open. I did that. So that was quite interesting, actually. I had a full head of hair when I went into there, but when you get involved in money markets, look what. Well, people won't be able to see, but I've not got much hair left now.
Oh well, I thought that was cycling that did that.
Go faster. Yeah. And so anyway, they decided to. Europe was going in a slightly different direction in clerical medical. It was seen as a big growth area, whereas we were more maintained. And they wanted to separate them. So we ended up spending a period of time where I used to manage, sort of the cash for Hong Kong, Europe.
So RBS they'd bought clerical medical at that point, hadn't they? They bought.
No, I thought was it Lloyd's?
Was it Lloyd's that bought that, and then Scottish Widows as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But it totally unrelated to me going there, by the way, Sharon.
Yeah.
But so. Anyway, it was decided then that we were going to split the company. So that meant that my job was, going to be cut in half. So it wasn't good news for Nick, really. No. So, to be fair, up there, they gave me a great opportunity. We worked out what it would look like. And I said, as long as I can get this, get the treasury function sorted out within, defined window, then, we'd shake hands and walk away. And we did that.
Yeah.
And, it was great helping them set up in Luxembourg and, get up and running. Yeah. But then also, I didn't see that as a threat. I see it very much as an opportunity.
Well, it sounds like it. Yeah.
Because, it depends. It depends on you as a person, how you react to things.
Oh, I think you're right.
I just took it as, I've done this for, 5 years. This could be an opportunity to do something, a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So, part of what I'd done before in banking, I had a lot of connections, and I started putting the word out that I'd be looking for work in sort of like 9 months' time, then 6 months, then 3 months, and I managed to go work for a law company on the Isle of Man who had a trust company.
Right. Okay.
And then we had a very large client, and out of that we spun another trust company. And I was running that. I ended up running that.
Yeah, yes, that's where I first got to know you, I think.
Yeah. So I ended up running that. Once again, loads more challenges.
Yeah.
And
quite different to roles in the previous roles, though. A good challenge.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what? The beauty about what the bank did, they gave me a great education.
Yeah.
I also took that opportunity. I went to, I'd got my banking exams. So I got stripes on my arm, and I think that's really important. And if there's a message of anyone listening today, more so today than ever, you must get stripes on your arms. Education, education, education. But I think also it's one thing having the qualification, it's having the practical application. And just to go back to my banking exams, it was really interesting because you got all these subjects. I think you had 6. And there was 2 at the end that were called practice of banking. So it was everything that you'd learned that gave you the in tray of a bank manager. So you're there, you're sat there, you're like 22, 23, and you imagine yourself, you're in one of those oak panelled boardrooms, because that's how they used to be, and you sat there, because that's when you went to see your manager. He was in one of those, and it was a 20, 30 meters to get to his desk once you'd entered his room. So this is the era. So you get the picture. So you're sat there.
I do, absolutely.
So you're doing your practice banking paper. You think, this is like Mr. So-and-so, this. But that was the point I'm making is you can learn so much, but it's how you actually apply that to your, to the situations. And needless to say, the practice of banking rate was something like 22%.
Yeah.
Because you can be very good intellectually, but can you actually apply that to
well, that's maybe why they decided to hollow out the banking system and get rid of everybody with banking exams. Do you remember watching Have I Got News for You? There was a challenge one year, spot the odd one out, and it was four photographs. It was of Fred the Shred, Bob Diamond, another one of the bank CEOs, and Terry Wogan. And the answer, the question was, which one is the odd one out? And the answer was Terry Wogan. And the reason why nobody could get this, well, he was the only one of the 4 that had banking exams.
Yes.
Which was, I thought, ironic.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that was going back to, we can go back to 2008 when,
it was actually. Yeah.
Yeah, when the banks were falling by the wayside, HBOS was it. Yeah, and it was very much a sales culture that they brought in.
The emperor has no clothes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's in some ways, when you get really well educated in banking and you start seeing the changes, that drove me in a way to say, enough's enough in banking,
Yeah. Fortunately, they've gone back the other way now. So, yeah.
Everything goes in cycles.
It does, doesn't it? So you're at this trust company?
Yeah, I worked at the trust company, and then it was a rather large trust. And then, as you know, with trust, there's a settlor, and the settlor died. So that changed the shape of, going forward. Before we had quite a complex structure around it. It had a Cayman fund with it was a BVI company through a Cayman fund in an Isle of Man trust. Oh, so, there was an awful lot. Yeah, it was, exciting. It was really exciting, because trying to keep abreast of everything, there was some amazingly talented people on that board. Part of my job was trying to control them, which was another story.
Okay.
But they were really talented.
Yeah.
And, it was a real privilege to do that, because you learn so much.
Yeah.
And I also have a saying that, good things happen around smart people, and in that, particularly in that type of business, it certainly does. So I learned an awful lot. I learned an awful lot of boardroom tactics. There were certain things I might have been uncomfortable that I knew that were on the agenda, and it's how you can tackle those problems. It's quite difficult sometimes when the chairman owns the company. So, he was probably seriously more conflicted than me in some of the decisions. So I felt I had a fairer look at things, shall we say.
Yeah.
So it's how you can, and don't forget he's employing me. So you're in that awkward position.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology going on there, Nick.
Absolutely. It was good fun though. And you know what? We'd end up almost throwing stuff at each other in the boardroom, but once you walk out that boardroom door, got a beer, you're sort of left behind.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when you build a team, that you can have that trust.
Absolutely.
Certainly any teams that I've had or worked with or tried to build, it's always on that basis. I can be as difficult as the next man, really, but I will also listen. But it's interesting you say you got any quotes. One quote that I've got quite a few. I call them Nickisms, right?
Nickisms.
Nickisms. Okay. Whenever you walk in a room with something, have an opinion. Because if you haven't got an opinion, you where do you start from and where you're moving to? Mm-hmm. And that's working in a type of law firm, that type of environment. You'd be absolutely slayed if you didn't have a starting point.
Yes.
But let people move you, but understand why they're moving you from one place to the next. You might have made some incorrect assumption.
Absolutely.
Right. Anyway, the trust company, the settlor died, so that meant we could strip out all the structuring for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And needless to say, I was probably the most expensive person on the balance sheet.
Right. Okay.
So, the hint of realism there that, this couldn't go on forever. When you start to pay down, we're paying down over a period of time.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically designed to wind down and pay out the beneficiaries.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And, pay down. So once again, go through the front door, cut a deal, which I managed to do. And then I thought, brilliant. Right. I'd worked almost every day of my life.
You went cycling, didn't you, for ages?
Yes.
I remember. You were really fit. Yeah. Are you still really fit?
No. No. Stop looking. This is how I ended up getting into government in a way.
Okay. What then? Old cyclists, are they? That's news to me.
No. There is a story. There's a story. Yeah. And it was much the story, a turning point, shall we say, both in my cycling career and in my employment. Yeah. They hit head on in the sense that I thought, great, I've got some time out now. First time ever, I thought, I'll take a year out. And I'll do what I want to do.
I bet when you left school, you didn't take a year out, did you? And go on a gap year or anything like that? No. So this is your delayed gap year then?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Sounds like you have a wonderful wife.
Oh, well, this will she'll feature in a minute. Yeah, I know she is. She's wonderful, honestly. A very very forthright, and I think I need somebody like that around me at times. You know what I mean?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And so anyway, I thought, oh great, I've got this time off now. I'll do stuff that I want to do, and it was great. First week, going out cycling every day, doing everything you want. But I'm quite a gregarious person, you know. I do miss people. So, you know, cycling on your own is fine. Cycling in a bunch is far more fun.
But well, it is if you can keep up. You've got no energy to be gregarious, or otherwise if you're hanging on but during the handlebars of somebody's back wheel who's too fast for you.
Yeah. So I thought so I'm going out doing quite a lot of cycling and stuff.
Yeah.
And one day I did about 120 odd miles, not a lot, but sort of about 40 of those were race miles. So I'm just building up to the story of how I ended up getting back into work again. So I've been everywhere, and we were racing up north of the island up in Derby, which is quite nice and flat. So anyway, I rode there and I was riding bike, and I got to the bottom of Faulty Well. And
having done the race?
Yeah.
Were you still doing the race? The race hasn't finished at this point.
The race had finished.
It wasn't the one that finishes at the top of Faulty Well.
No. No. I've done that one as well.
That's horrible. Yeah. Okay.
So we finished the race, and I'm just like heading back, and I got to the bottom of Faulty Well, and I had to stop and go in the river and fill my water bottle up. Right, because I was totally dry, and so I managed to get home, and I got home. And then my wife was in, and I walked in and she said, Nick, you look terrible. Oh. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and I said, I had to stop and fill the water bottle, you know, the story.
Yeah, out the river.
Yeah, out the river. And she looked at me and I looked at her and I said, yeah, I need to get a job.
Well, you weren't sick. You weren't sick, were you?
No, not at all.
No, I was going to say.
That water's lovely. That water, I wouldn't recommend it, though.
I wouldn't either.
No, but when needs... You must know what it's like, Sharon, when you're out and you're thirsty, and you would drink anything. So anyway, I filled the bottle, I got home, and that was it. So that was me then. It's right, I need to get a job. And you know what? When you sat at home and you've got all the time in the world, and it's just you and your steaming cup of coffee on a Monday morning, you know, I started to realise that, you know what, I'm not ready for this yet. So then I started to put my feelers out, and I ended up going through selection. There's a bit of a selection process for government to run the high net worth strategy. Yeah. So, you know, you can probably tell from my background, you know, banking, investments, all that sort of stuff really tied in quite nicely with the high net worth world, you know, running trusts as well for high net worth. So, you know, I ended
experience.
Absolutely. And, you know, good training in banking. So, you know, on customer service and management and those sorts of stuff, you know, stood me in good stead. So, and I've been in there for about 5 years now.
So tell me a bit about locate.im. What would make people want to come and live here? You know, what are you doing in that? Well, what's your day job now?
Yeah, I think the Isle of Man's got a great proposition. You know, just look at the place. It's really beautiful. It's safe, secure. It depends who you're trying to sell to. I think that's another important point.
So is it a proper strategy though, Nick, or is it more a mile wide, inch deep?
No, we've got a proper strategy that's gone through, gone through Tynwald. There's something like 6 strands to it. Admittedly, some of those, you know, have been cut at the moment because of COVID, but it's, you know, it's things like looking at graduate retention, looking at skilled workers, looking at high net worths, you know, all those sorts of things. Yeah. I suppose what you say locate does, I see our role is really to signpost things to people, give them the information so they can make informed decisions about the Isle of Man and how it's going to work for them. You know, we can't make that decision for them, but let's make sure that they've got all that information at their disposal so they can make, you know, a fair and honest assessment of what we have on offer here. Yeah. And perhaps take out some of the bumps in the carpet. When I say bumps in the carpet is how can they find the information? You know, because there's a lot of information out there, probably too much. And it's how you can just make their life a little bit easier. Yeah,
multiple sources of information can sometimes be confusing, can't they? Yeah. No, I agree. We've done a lot of work on our sort of signposting, if you like, to try and bring more guidance. So,
I mean, the way I look at it, you can file, if you just look at how you file stuff for yourself personally, I might have a way that works for my mind, but for somebody else, they might, go the opposite way. Totally. And so that's always a danger when you're building websites, where do you put the information on and how do you start it?
Yeah.
But I always go back to customer journey. If somebody's in the UK and wants to come to the Isle of Man, well, what's the things they're going to ask for? And I sort of evaluate how I want the website to look from that. By the way, we've got some great people in there who've got far more clued up than I am on websites and customer journeys. I see myself as a little bit of a blunt instrument, really, that's rolled out in front of people and try and provide them.
So who'd be your ideal, for want of another description, client? Who'd be the ideal person you'd want to attract to the Isle of Man?
Oh, I think there's
profile one.
Oh, if I had to have one, I'd probably have to go for high net worth. Those that are economically active, because you can get a lot of bang for your buck with somebody like that. You can, if you get that right sort of person, they'll come, they'll set things up. They could do their own family office, for instance. They could then set up some form of trading company. They might want to head office their entire operations here, and working with those people with complex demands, shall we call them, but somehow providing them with the information. And by the way, this is where it's really important to have great connections with, professional services on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, sure.
Because I suppose I've had the benefit, I've worked in some of them, but sometimes, as I say, a little knowledge is dangerous. So always defer to, professional advice. And there's plenty of good people out there. You know yourself, Sharon, you've got people who might, somebody say, I've got a pension, what should I do with it? And it's like, whoa, you need to think about it. You need to go speak with somebody.
Yeah,
you need a professional who can tell you what the options are. And I'm sure you do similar stuff to me, Sharon, as you'll say, well, these are the things you can do.
Totally. This. Absolutely. Yeah. But there's a benefit to being licensed and insured and regulated. Yes. And that's, I think that's a big strength that the Isle of Man is constantly overlooked for, is that we have such a strong regulatory framework here. And, we could probably make a lot more of it. But
yeah, so that would be probably my my ideal type of a candidate or person to try and attract, because I think it's going to do the most you can for the Isle of Man's economy, create not only wealth but create jobs, for the people that are on the Isle of Man. Yeah. I do. I'm quite passionate about it, and I don't always see eye to eye with the powers that be. I think we could look at it in a slightly different way, but, I'm pampering to my needs and what I think. They have to consider the whole electorate, and the whole community. And I get that, but I still like to push for what I think would, in my view, help the Isle of Man a bit more.
Absolutely.
If we can agree to disagree, it's not deal breaker. So that would be my ideal. And the other thing, I know you said one, but the other ones I quite like entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's exciting.
But it's like the high net worths are sort of the entrepreneur that's made it, if you know what I mean. How gutsy they are and the vision that they have. It's really exciting. And once you meet with them, and you think, great. These people are going to make. They're gonna make an impression here, and they're going to do it really well. Yeah, and then helping them and feeding them, giving the information. Yeah, and then. I've had that with, sometimes my phone rings first and it'd be something to do with like a gaming company or something like that. And then it's how, you can give them information on how to bring people here, but then it's the industry aspect. So then you have to go and defer out to either, in this case, it was like digital, and then you get the right people engaged into it. So then you start to build a package for them. So they're going to understand how it's going to work. And there was one company, and they set something up recently, and people don't realise we've been talking to these people for 18 months, nearly 2 years.
Well, you can't say anything; it's all confidential, isn't it? Until they
absolutely
actually make the decision and come here.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. That sort of stuff excites me.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great to hear that we've got so many opportunities, really, and I suppose the way that most people, the general public, see it is in the for sale signs coming down on houses. if you don't mind, let's move on to the questions that I ask all our guests.
Okay.
So, I mean, primarily, and I ask this when in my role as a financial planner, what's your earliest memory of money? And what was money like growing up for you?
Money. Oh, well, I come from a traditional northern sort of background.
Yep.
I wouldn't say my parents weren't wealthy, probably quite the opposite. They weren't destitute, but, working class. And my first recollection of money was obviously getting a little bit of pocket money. And this is when you had actual cash. You didn't have it in a bank account. You could actually see it. And so I had a little sort of tin that I used to put my money in. And that was my first recollection of money. And then I thought, well, I need a bit more money. So I remember going to my dad and I said, Dad, any chance, a bit more money, pocket money? And my dad turned around to me and said, Nicholas, because he always calls me Nicholas, right? Not Nick, Nicholas, because that's what I was christened.
Yes.
Said, Nicholas, he said, nobody gives me money, so I'm not going to give you money. He said, if you want any more money, that's easy. You can go wash the car, you can do things around the house, and I will pay you. And, that's how my father dealt with me. And you know what? Brilliant. Because it makes you understand, the value of money, and I've seen different aspects of money, through trust companies, things like that. And that is a value that I think is vital, going forward in your life, to understand the value of it, and just a little story. I used to go working. My dad was in the building industry. So I'd go working with my father on a Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes at nights. And I'd probably been about 12 at the time. This is pre-health and safety. There's nothing wrong with having a 12-year-old on a roof.
Well, not when it's your dad. That's fine. You can get away with all sorts, even today.
But you'll like this. You like this little story, and so every time I got paid, I wanted a bike, so I bought a bit for my bike. So I built a whole bike based on money that my dad paid me. Gosh. And I've still got that bike in my garage now.
Have you? Oh, it's a great story.
Because that teaches you the value of money. And that bike, when I look at that bike, it reminds me about crawling up on roofs, nailing down floors, doing all those sorts of stuff. And that is the value of money. And I've still got it. It used to be a winter bike. At some point, I think I must really renovate it.
Yeah.
But that's going to go to the grave with me.
Oh, that's a lovely story. It would be a funny shaped coffin. Yeah. Yes, that would.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
But if you want to avoid the early scenario, you might want to fit some disc brakes, because I'm not joking. Those caliper brakes in the wet in the winter. Oof,
it's quite interesting. You know what? I'm still. There's a debate going on. I've got a friend of mine. He's bought a bike and is slightly heavier than me. He's about 6'5".
Right.
So stopping's quite important, particularly when he's a big lad.
Yeah.
And we had this debate. So what do you think? And I've got a bike at the moment, and the discs aren't fantastic, and the calipers work better. But then I went to my brother's, and he's got a bike with discs on.
Mm.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Night and day from one that I've got. Yeah, and I think that's it. I think if you get the right ones, I think you're right, Sharon. They're good.
Yeah. Okay. So, of all the things that you've done throughout your life so far, Nick, what's, or should I say, Nicholas, what things have you done that given you the most fulfillment from both a business and a personal perspective?
Business-wise, I think was getting qualified.
Yeah.
We talked before about stripes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm probably not the most academic in the world. I'm not stupid. I'm sort of above average probably, but that's it. I don't think I'd make Harvard, put it that way. But you don't need that. It's about application.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time. But as long as you've got the stripes, that gets you on the pitch. That's all it does.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets you on the pitch. Then it's about how you apply yourself.
Yeah.
Which is really important. So I think I'm fortunate in a way. I've got a combination of two. And, I'm not either all this or all that. I can mix and match, which I think is quite important.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we class that as personal or business?
That's kind of, it's a bit of both, really. But unless you want to say something else about personal.
Yeah, well, I think having kids is fantastic.
Yeah. How old are yours now?
I'll probably get shot now because I'm going to struggle to get them right. One's 23 and the other one's 28.
Golly.
Yeah. No, brilliant. You look back and I have a thought on life, right? When you come into this world, if your children can be one rung up the ladder from myself, then, I've achieved something. And then if their generation then make another step up the ladder, it's a bit like, the New Zealand rugby team. They have a similar sort of ethic. When you put that shirt on, what your job is to make sure that when you take it off and you hand it to that next guy who's got that shirt of yours, you've taken it a rung up. You've added something to it. You've positioned your nation a step higher, and it's that sort of mentality. I mean, I've got my oldest one. She's a doctor, 7-year post qualified. She's going to be a registrar very shortly.
Wow.
So in A&E, so brilliant. Yeah, as I say, intelligence skips a generation.
Not at all. But you should be very proud.
Yeah. And then my youngest, she's doing a nursing degree. So they're both obviously very caring. Yeah, so that's skipped a generation as well, I think. I'm only joking.
So for any existing or aspiring business owners, entrepreneurs, what would you be your number one tip, Nick?
Resilience.
Not get on a plane and come to the Isle of Man.
Yeah. Well, there is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you probably know with me, I'm a straight shooter.
Yep.
Right. If I didn't think the Isle of Man would work for somebody, I'd be honest enough to tell them.
Yeah.
And the reason being is I don't want to walk down Strand Street and see that person in 18 months' time, knowing that perhaps it wouldn't work for them. Mm-hmm. I'd bring it to their attention. I wouldn't say don't come here, but I'd say these are the factors that I think you need to consider.
Yeah.
And people, I think,
but they make their own choices,
that.
Don't they? People make, as long as they know they're informed. They can make their own choices.
Yeah. So what thing? I think it would be resilience.
Resilience. Okay.
And belief in yourself.
Yeah. Good.
Because I think they lurch from, particularly if you start up, you lurch from one crisis to the other.
Yeah.
And after a bit, if you can't handle sleepless nights, thinking how are you going to solve this conundrum, then you need some resilience to do that. And both in my banking career, well, you probably know when you set your own business up, Sharon, when you first start, you move into bigger properties and you perhaps you need that so you can expand and you got your expenditure before your income. That is where, you need that resilience and belief to do it.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, that's for sure.
I totally agree with you. And if it's not, don't do it because it will take years off your life.
Cool.
You're good now, though. Yeah, you're good now. Brilliant place out in by Tynwell there.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, we're very, very happy here. Yes.
Yeah.
The ducks greet you on the way up to the office. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What do you do to relax these days? Keep your life in balance? You're still getting stuck at the bottom of Salty Will? Drinking out of rivers?
I am actually, but not. First thing I did, right, I take any technology off my bike. Right. Because I think if you've been a racer, and you were a great racer, I was just like I just did it for a bit of fun. But if you're competitive, the first thing that you do is you start looking at your heart rate, your wattage. So I thought, no, take all your technology off your bike and just ride and enjoy it. So now I do, and I just spin up hills, I have great fun. So that's one of the things I really enjoy doing.
That's a great idea. I'll do that.
Yeah. I'm also from Yorkshire, so I'm a little bit reluctant to spend another £500, £600 on a Garmin. Well, that's another story.
Yeah.
The other thing I quite like to do actually is I do like kayaking. I mean, when you come from Sheffield, we used to go, as we used to call it, you go to the seaside once a year, right? And I live by the seaside now, and it's such a fantastic place. I really remember when I started at RBS, I'd walk down to the front and just sit there and look at the sea, and have my sandwich. And it's things like that you think, oh, this is great. What a great place this is. Yeah. I always dreamed, because you only went there once a year when you were a kid, I always dreamed about living next to the sea. And then, by chance, it all happened.
Yeah.
And I just love it. And coming back to the sea, the other thing that I like to do is I like to go kayaking. Got a little kayak, put it on the roof of my my van, and away I go. Perhaps do a bit of fishing or just cruise up and down. It's great. You get out there, a mile out, 2 miles out, you can hear a pin drop. It's brilliant. So from either, going up faulty wheel, full bore, or going on a kayak and just peace and quiet. I like the contrast. I think it's, and I think that probably sums up the Isle of Man. There's so much to do here if you really want to do it. I mean, such a great place.
That's the best thing, isn't it, really? It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So what would you say are the main challenges that the Isle of Man faces? I mean, we've got a few challenges on the go, haven't we, now, with Joe Biden and his corporate tax, global corporate taxes.
Yeah. I mean, those, in all the time that I've been in the Isle of Man, these things haven't changed. They've always been a constant of international pressure. I do think we are misunderstood. But I know why we are misunderstood. It's because there's nobody stood in, the other side of the ballot box, or whatever as they call it in Westminster, who's shouting our corner. We are probably the best regulated territory, in not saying the world, but, close to it.
Yes.
I mean, I can tell you stories about people I've, sat opposite in my current role, and how business is dealt with differently in another territory. I'm talking offshores here. I'm talking just mainland. They're just done it in a totally different way. And in some ways, I think it's a little bit unfair on the offshore centres.
Yes.
Because, the height that we have to, that 5-bar gate is a lot higher here for exactly the same business. That's an equality I don't really like. But
what sort of solutions would you have for those challenges?
I think it's just having communication, open communication, and getting out there and explaining our story, educating them. It's how you message that's really important, I think.
Some sort of lobbying campaign for...
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And get involved, if you can, get involved in international working parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Moneyval. We were one of the first ones to, be inspected.
Yeah.
That's a tough place to be, number one. Because that's, if you're not careful, they can make a lot of mistakes on the first one, and then you're saddled with it. They
did a great job, that team, I must say.
Yeah. So, I think it's all about lobby. I think it's lobbying and education, as in educating people how we are and what we do and how we do it, and the skills that we have, and people should have confidence in us. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. So, what have you got planned next, Nick? What's next on the agenda for you and for locate.im?
Well, hopefully locate.im, right? I think the world as we know it is going to change, or it is changing as we speak. And I think there's going to be some great opportunities for the Isle of Man in all of this.
Yeah,
I don't like to say too much about the T word, as I call it, which is tax. But I think there's going to be, and we've seen it, we know with corporation tax is going to go up. I think that's the precursor to other things as well. So, so long as we can be prudent in what we do, I think there'll be some great opportunities.
Yeah.
I know we've got our challenges. Let's not think that it's all sweetness and light here. We're faced with similar challenges, propping our economy up, trying to keep people gainfully employed. Yes, the right things to do. So we've got our challenges, but if we can be a little bit more prudent, I think we could do really well in all of this.
Yeah.
So what's coming at us? We need to get out on the road. We need to get our message out. Perhaps normalize a little bit. Start meeting people face to face, and get on the road and start trying to attract more people. Tell them about our story. I get quite excited. We're sat here planning now what we're going to do, and we just can't wait to get out the blocks. Really. I've done a lot of sort of stuff on podcasts, for other companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like that, but as you probably gathered from earlier on, I quite like meeting people and, pressing flesh or whatever you want to call it. There's no better way than doing it that way. I think there's going to be some great opportunities for the Isle of Man, of which Locate will be front of house on. because it tends to be our phone rings first, probably when people have, inquiries. I think we've got a great website, locate.im, for individuals. And then if they come to us, we can then, engage with the other agencies within government to make sure they get, a fair hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good. Some quick fire questions. We're coming to the end of our recording today. So what about books? What have you read, Nick? What's a good read for you?
This is going to be terrible. I don't really read that many books.
Well, you're not the first one to say that. Okay, well, let's go on to box sets then.
Hang on. But let me finish. I read an awful lot on the internet. I read a lot of news articles. I'm really quite fascinated because of my background in finance. I'm really quite fascinated by the financial markets, and particularly like currency markets because, I've done a bit of currency trading in my time. I just love understanding and learning, and I'll tell you what I really like is people can be successful using totally different strategies in the same market. I find that really fascinating.
Yeah.
They've each got their own belief, but they both can be quite profitable. Mm-hmm. And at this moment in time, I'm looking at all these different, like there's something in currency trading, there's a thing called the Wyckoff theory, which is, I don't want to get too much detail, but basically there's money, there's the market makers, and it's how you as a retailer can work out what they're doing. And because what you don't want to do is, smart money, stupid money. You don't want to be the stupid money because it's buying and selling. So you've got to make sure you're on the right side. And it's things like that I just really enjoy trying to understand it.
And I'm glad you do. Warren Buffett's not a big fan, is he?
It's like, why not pitch yourself against the best, with your own cash? I only do it for a bit of fun.
Okay. Yes. No recommendations here. Thank you.
No. Just get on the internet.
Yeah. You gave me some a really good quote before. Do you have any others?
Did I say find a passion and go for it?
No, that's a good one. Find a passion and go for it. Does that include drinking that stuff? What is that stuff you're drinking?
It's cold coffee.
Cold coffee.
Yeah, do you know what? No. Yeah. No, what you do, you don't actually make your coffee with boiling water.
Right.
You have cold water and you put your coffee, your ground straight into there. So you don't boil it. So it just has a slightly different taste to it. Yeah. Nice in an afternoon. It can be quite refreshing. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I've not sold it, obviously. I need to work on my marketing.
No. Yeah. This doesn't do it on the presentation side, I have to say.
No.
So where can people go to learn more about you and locate.im is the website, of course, which we'll put in the show notes. Social
without
media?
Without a doubt, I'd certainly go to locate.im. I need to put my game on social media a little bit more, on the Twitter and stuff like that. LinkedIn is obviously an obvious one to try and, get hold of me. That's it really. So LinkedIn and, the various government websites. Locate.im because I'm biased because I work for Locate, but there's plenty of other government websites that you can find out quite a bit of information. Yeah. I think ours is more user-friendly, the Locate one, because we try and pull in bits of all the other websites, a bit from income tax, a bit from work permits. We try and, have a one-stop shop thing going on there. And I think to a point it's working reasonably well. I think there's a few tweaks that we need to do because we've been going now for, for about 3 years.
Right.
And what happens, you keep bolting pieces on, don't you? And then if you're not careful, you lose the journey when people come in, So that's the only thing I would say. We are looking at the journeys internally.
Yeah, but you've got Alison Tier on board now, so I guess
absolutely, brilliant. Yeah, a lot of time for Alison.
Yeah,
no, Alison's very good on that sort of stuff. Yeah, we do have our conversations as well because she's quite a strong person, which I quite like.
Yeah,
we do have some good discussions. It's good.
Well, I think that's about it, really, Nick. Apart from just saying thank you so much for spending time today. I hope your lockdown is over relatively painlessly, and you're back out amongst us in short order.
Not that I'm counting, but it will be Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I'm allowed to do it. For people who don't know, I've just come back from the UK, so I'm currently in isolation for the 7 days and then an additional 3 before you can really go for it.
Yeah.
But I'm allowed out on my bike anyway, so I'm doing an hour a day on my bike. which is good just to clear my head.
Yeah,
and just before I go, thanks for inviting me on. It's been fun. If anybody does want to know anything about Locate or anything generally really about government, feel free to, go through the websites. There's all the contact details on there. I'd love to try and help in any way I can. And thanks again, Sharon.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay. See you on the road somewhere.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Island Influencers from Thornton Chartered Financial Planners. To find out more and for useful links, visit thorntonfs.com/podcasts.